Hi, I'm Angela Jung reporting for UBC Events. I'm here with Cheryl Cran, a generational leadership expert. She has also written 2 books, one of which is a bestseller. So thank you so much for joining me here today at the SLC and speaking about rethinking generations. So for those who aren't familiar with the term generational leadership, what does this mean?
Well, generational leadership is looking at the fact that we are now, for the first time ever, have 4 generations in one workplace at the same time. And those generations are the Generation Y, which are those in their 20s, Generation X, which are those in their 30s up until their mid-40s, baby boomers, who are in their 45 to 65, and then the traditionalists. When I talk about generational leadership, I focus on the 3 generations, the X, Y, and I call them the Zoomers. And a Zoomer is a baby boomer who refuses to age. So that, but the generational leadership is very relevant today because of the different value systems, the different approaches to work. And leaders today need to understand the generational differences in order to be effective leaders.
So what got you into this?
Oh, interesting story. I've been a leadership expert for over 15 years. I started my consultancy business in 1994. And what I found is about 6 years ago, I was working with clients and they were really starting to have communication problems with their staff. And they were noticing that a lot of their leaders were not be able to retain the younger employees. And so they saw that as a symptom of something wasn't right. And I started to investigate and research and interview and found that definitely what was happening was a generational gap issue.
Right.
And that what was happening is that the baby boomers' ideals or values of what they think should be happening was directly opposed to what a Gen Y felt they wanted to do in the workplace. So it started for me. Now the field itself has been around for about 6-7 years, but for me I sort of segued my leadership consultancy and training into that area. And I also find it highly interesting because I do see Generation Y as being our future leaders and being our future business owners. And I think their mentality is the one that we all need to be paying attention to.
Right. Okay, great. So you've also worked with many companies, 3M, McDonald's, Health Canada, and many more. So which one of those did you find to be the most interesting to work with?
That's such a big question. You know, it's really hard to say most interesting. You know, every company has its own culture and they have their own way of doing things. And so one of the reasons I love doing what I do is because every time I go into a different organization, I'm learning something new myself, right, because of the culture. I'd say the most interesting culture from a generational standpoint probably was McDonald's restaurants. You know, what's happening is a lot of the restaurants were started by baby boomer parents and now being succession planned down to their Gen X children. And you know, it's funny, when I did McDonald's restaurants keynote 2 years ago, I sat at a table where they were next generation business owners, Gen X, and they were saying how their parents constantly at Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner are saying, well, when we own the restaurant, you know. And I found that fascinating because the fast food industry is a real good snapshot of, you know, culture at large, right? So Gen X is really having, Gen X leaders in McDonald's is really having an impact on healthier eating. And they really are taking the serious, you know, implications that McDonald's has contributed to obesity in North America very seriously. So from that standpoint, I found that one really, really interesting.
You do a lot of things. So what keeps you based here in Vancouver?
Well, Vancouver, for me, is the ideal place to be based out of because I do have my working visa to work in the U.S. as well. I could live in the U.S. if I wanted to. A couple reasons for Vancouver. First of all, it's a very cosmopolitan international city. I can fly in and fly out easily. I live in Yaletown. I love the Canada line. Hop on that and get right to the airport. It's very easy and very flexible for me. Vancouver itself, it's interesting. You know, you would think that you would be busy in your own city. That rarely happens with consultants. We're usually busy outside of our city, and so I do a lot of travel. So from a travel standpoint, it's a very central location, easy to get to and from. Not always easy when I'm doing eastern travel or heading to Halifax or to the east, but I think Vancouver too, and I said this in my presentation today, Vancouver's very innovative. We are on the leading edge for a lot of things, global commerce, technology. I feel that from a lifestyle standpoint, it's got everything, and so I'm you know, born and raised in Canada, and I think Vancouver. You know, I said today in my presentation for Gen Ys, if they can somehow find themselves to stay in Vancouver, I think it's one of the best cities in the world to live and work.
I agree. Great. So thanks again for coming.
Thank you.